With that, we are now happy to have on the program Terry Sheehan, the Liberal MP for Sault Ste. Marie, and Matthew Green, the NDP MP for Hamilton. Both communities are in Ontario. Both are steel-producing cities. Hello to both of you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And just a quick note, we did invite the Conservatives to take part. We did not get an MP from them, but we are happy to have both Terry and Matthew here. And Terry, I'll get you to start us out with the discussion because, you know, Algoma Steel, I don't have to tell you, they announced 20 layoffs last week, and that may seem like a relatively small number, but how worrying is that for the community?
The community is very concerned, and I share their concern. You know, I saw this movie in 2018 when I was the MP for Sault Ste. Marie when Trump put tariffs on steel and aluminum. And I can tell you, I hated that movie then. And I do not like the sequel. It's shaping up to be worse. But in 2018, you know, I saw that same anger, sadness, shock, a multitude of emotions, and rightfully so, because Algoma Steel at that time, I just had been elected. Algoma Steel was in bankruptcy. The Hamilton Steel people were in a lot of trouble down there too. So when Trump put those tariffs on, it was Algoma Steel and Tenaris, thousands of people that work there, but the multiplier effect in Sault Ste. Marie was enormous because for every job in the Soo, there's 3 other jobs that support those steel workers directly and indirectly. And the one thing about the Soo where it's really significant is there's a whole bunch of pensioners and what they call widower pensioners. Those were the people that were really upset and crying then and really upset now because they rely on their income. And the next city over, the large city, is Sudbury, 4 hours away. That's a significant place for someone to have to drive if anything ever happened to our steel industry. So that's why I'm fighting tooth and nail right now. You've reawakened the tiger here in Sault Ste. Marie. We were Team Canada. We're Team Canada today. And today we retaliated. And we also have announced supports for workers in the industry. Mm-hmm. So I can tell you, Michael, that I appreciate the opportunity to come here online, but your observations are absolutely correct because this is an affront to everything in capitalism and democracy that Trump's doing.
Listen, we'll get it in a bit into the government countermeasures here, but Matthew, I'll get you to pipe in as well because, as you say, Hamilton is another steel-producing city. How big of an impact will these tariffs have on your community?
Well, Trump's tariffs are an attack, an economic attack. It's not just a trade dispute. This is actually economic warfare against Canadian workers. And as you've identified, we've been here before. We know what this looks like in Hamilton, and we can't allow our workers to get burned in this process again. I think back, Terry mentioned what happened in 2018. I can go back to when U.S. Steel bought Stelco in 2007. They promised to maintain Canadian production. Instead, they used bankruptcy laws to pick the pockets of the seniors that Terry was talking about and secret deals that essentially sold out through bankruptcy our workers. I think about Hamilton Specialty Bar, who was bought, which was another disaster, was bought by Bain Capital, Mitt Romney's company. We're talking about 4 generations of workers, hundreds of workers, and as was mentioned, the complementary jobs that go with it. They were bought out, they were stripped down, and they were scrapped for parts. This is what happens when we have American-owned branch plants treating Canada like a branch plant economy where our workers are always cannon fodder for the stock options, the dividends, and the markets of these American owners. And so we need to make sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes. If public dollars are being used, as was announced, we need to start with EI. We need to fix this system and make sure that nobody falls through the cracks, that people have access to it and that it's suitable, that it meets their needs for today, and that every dollar that goes to a company is conditional on clear and transparent employment levels and production levels right here in Canada.
You mentioned what you're looking for beyond the counter tariffs announced today, worker support, community support. But Terry, you mentioned a bit about the widows' pensions and the concerns. And I've been getting stories about union reps getting phone calls of people in tears, worried about what the future holds for them. Are you finding that when you speak to your constituents?
It's such a challenge anywhere in Canada, these tariffs. But I'm going to talk specifically to the people I represent in Sault Ste. Marie here in Northern Ontario. One of the things that happens, and I've spent my life in business and economic development, doing proactive stuff, but sometimes responding to closures of mills. When mills that are so important to these towns close, people not only lose their job, but they lose the equity in their home. If it happens so that, and Trump was aiming at destroying the steel industry in 2018. And, that's, people in the steel industry here in Canada got it. Like the whole guns were set on them. So we had to respond very strongly with supports for workers, with a SIF program that invested in the steel industry in both Sault Ste. Marie, Hamilton, and the aluminum sector and other steel places, but also, to make sure that we were resilient in what was a very calculated attack to try and destroy our steel industry. And just like we did today, we're responding very strong. We've already identified existing tools in the toolbox, but Mr. Carney also said that all money raised, from the tariffs will be put back into workers and put back into to the workers affected. And I take a look of comparison to Mr. Poilievre that said that he's going to use the money raised from tariffs to give tax breaks to the rich. I don't think that's very responsible.
Let me jump.
But we're united across this whole country.
And I hear what you're saying, Terry. But Matthew, I'll ask you the question I was trying to get from Terry as well about the stories that you're hearing from people in Hamilton, because add to that just the cost of living in the Greater Toronto Hamilton area.
Yeah, look, this is people's livelihoods, and the uncertainty alone, as has been witnessed in Algoma, we're going to see it here with National Steel Car. The uncertainty, even the threat of the tariffs, has caused layoffs. It's caused a chilling effect in the purchase contracts that are coming in. So now we have a situation where companies are looking to the longer-term perspective. They're not seeing certainty, and they're withholding and withdrawing contracts in Canadian companies right now. Forget about if this thing kicks in down the line April 2nd. This is happening right now. And so we are hearing from people. He mentioned pensioners. I can think about what happened with my own father-in-law who, through CCAA and bankruptcy, lost some of the benefits, which include pharmacare, which include, essential medicines. And so when people are having to make these tough choices about buying their medicine, paying for the increasing costs of food, we have to keep in mind, it's important for every Canadian to keep in mind that these workers, particularly the union folks who negotiated through collective agreements, they traded their present wages for future considerations, including their pensions and benefits. They made that trade-off, and we cannot allow a system through CCAA, should there be shutdowns, should there be closures or bankruptcies, we cannot allow a system that allows workers and pensioners to be left out in the cold simply so that CEOs can pad their pockets in the States. So we need a commitment from the government. I know Terry talked about money coming from tariffs. Hopefully he'll comment on whether or not there's a commitment to fixing the broken EI, but it goes beyond that. USW, Marty Warren, he's calling for expanded work share agreements. We did something like this with the CEWS, with the wage subsidies, but we need to make sure that every dollar that is invested into Canadian corporations here, even if they're American-owned, are conditional that it goes to directly supporting the workers that are most impacted.
Listen, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to Terry and ask that question about other supports, because unfortunately we're out of time right now. But I really wanted to get from both of you kind of how communities are feeling right now with these tariffs. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Terry, Matthew, thank you for the time.
Thank you very much for having us on.
Canada.